give Lisa a ride home?
Sure.
Thanks for the ride.
The new Porsche Cayenne. There's nothing like the feeling when you sports car together.
Gigabit Internet issa f'Malta. Gawdi mill-Giga Power biss mal-Melita Flexi.
They called it madness. Building the car of your dreams yourself. Madness. Putting the engine in the back. Madness. Launching a turbocharged super sports car in the midst of a worldwide oil crisis. Madness. Taking a sports car into the desert and taking the insights gained there back onto the streets. Madness. Building the first hybrid car on Earth. And when its time had come, the fastest one on Earth. Once more, they called it madness. Let them call it madness. We call it courage. The courage to build a sports car with 4 business class seats. The courage to upgrade not only the driving, but also the driver. The courage to transfer an unmistakable design DNA and create a luxury saloon that was born on the racetrack and is at home on the roads. The new Panamera. Courage changes everything.
And welcome for this round 4 of the Porsche Continental Cars Limited Porsche Cup 2010 from Sim Racing Malta. So in roughly 2 minutes we'll be going to briefing. Here with us today Joshua, Penny and Kacper to commentate this race of today, and we'll see. Definitely it's going to be definitely an exciting race, and we'll see if the leaderboard will change following this race. On to you, Joshua and Kacper.
Yes, certainly. Hello, everyone, and welcome, as we've just heard from Adrian Figallo, to the round 4 of the Porsche Continental Cars Limited Porsche 911 Championship of 2018. So far, we're in the official practice session, just waiting for the driver briefing, and then it won't be long. Well, we're not in the official practice session yet, but we're just waiting for the driver briefing, and then after that, we will have an official practice session followed by qualifying, and then a 60-minute race rather. And helping me talk through it today is going to be Kacper.
Hello, and you managed to butcher my name again.
Did I?
So,
Oh, I'm
yes.
sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh well.
Give us a lesson. How do we say Kowadziecik?
Kowadziecik.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's going to be a pleasure, and I think those cars are going to be a lot of fun to watch again. And just like last week, I think we're going to have a very good level of competition, even though last week it was a casual race, and this is a far more prestigious, we could say. I think far more high-level drivers that we can recognize will be driving around here today, and I think this is going to be highly exciting.
Yeah, certainly. And looking at the championship as well, it got very close at the end of the last round. We now have the top 4 drivers in the championship, top 5 drivers separated by just 20 points, and you get 20 points for a win. So any of 5 drivers could take the lead of the point standings today, and those are Hani Al Sabdi, Kevin Siggy, Risto Capit, Gergo Baldi, and Richard Schaefer. Schaefer, of course, can't take the lead of the actual championship today because he doesn't have as many wins as Al Sabdi. Al Sabdi has 2, and Schaefer would have 1 if he won today. But realistically, we have a proper battle of 5 people for the championship at the minute, with Al Sabdi topping it by 6 points.
So we'll be moving now to the briefing channel, so that we do the briefing to the drivers. Following that, we'll have a short break, and at 8 sharp, we'll start with our official practice session. So, hello everybody. Welcome to this round 4 of the Porsche Continental Cars Limited Porsche Cup. Very few words from my side. Definitely, we're going to have a race, which is going to be 15 minutes of practice, 30 minutes of qualifying. Following that, we're going to have the race itself. As you know, you have the mandatory pits. It's important you observe that mandatory pit window you have. As always, we say, do a clean race. Respect, especially the first corner, and the penalties of the game are going to count. And we have also live stewards, as you well know now, looking at any other irregular driving or dangerous driving. If you go off track, please do rejoin the track in a good manner, not just rushing back into the track. Also, please respect any flags, especially blue flags. If you have any questions, please do ask now. Otherwise, good luck, and we'll see you at 8 o'clock for the official practice session.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, we're back here, live again. As we said, very soon, it's like in 7 minutes, we'll be going live with our first official practice session, which will go for 15 minutes, following which we'll have a 30-minute qualifying session, and then we'll have the race itself, in which there is a mandatory pit stop that all drivers need to do, otherwise they will get a penalty.
And thank you for that, Adrian. And I think I'd just like to mention that we are live on, as far as I know, 4 channels at the moment. We're on Sim Racing Malta's YouTube channel. Facebook page, and if I recall correctly, Twitch as well. And we're also live on SimNews.TV YouTube channel. So please feel free to subscribe, like any of those pages, and choose your platform of choice to watch this race. And I hope you all enjoy it as well, because I think we all will. And with that, we also so we have about 5 minutes before we go, and and I think these race cars are going to be fascinating. And we have had them race a couple times already this season. Of course, this is round 4. So we haven't raced in about a month. However, I think that they will provide pretty interesting racing. They're not the easiest cars to drive. As far as I know, they do not have ABS, so it's very easy to lock up the brakes. And as far as I cannot, for the life of me, remember if they actually have traction control. However, they are fairly powerful cars, and they're more they're closer to a GT car than a touring car in the way they race. So they're really, really fast, exciting racing, and there's going to be a lot in the race in terms of strategy, since there will be a pit window in the race, which will cause a bit of strategy plays depending on how you want to manage your tires.
So I'm going to interrupt you, Kacper. Thank you for that. We're going to go for a short commercial break, after which we'll go straight away for the official practice session.
Hey, Dad, can we give Lisa a ride home?
Sure.
Thanks for the ride.
The new Porsche Cayenne. There's nothing like the feeling when you sports car together.
Gigabit Internet issa f'Malta. Gawdi mill-Giga Power. Biss mal-Malta Flexi.
They called it madness. Building the car of your dreams yourself. Madness. Putting the engine in the back. Madness. Launching a turbocharged super sports car in the midst of a worldwide oil crisis. Madness. Taking a sports car into the desert and taking the insights gained there back onto the streets. Madness. Building the first hybrid car on Earth. And when its time had come, the fastest one on Earth. Once more, they called it madness. Let them call it madness. We call it courage. The courage to build a sports car with 4 business class seats. The courage to upgrade not only the driving, but also the driver. The courage to transfer an unmistakable design DNA and create a luxury saloon that was born on the racetrack and is at home on the roads. The new Panamera. Courage changes everything.
And welcome back to this round 4 of Sim Racing Malta Continental Cars Limited Porsche Cup. Official practice is on. Actually, it's been on for the past 2 minutes. On to you, Joshua and Kacper, to commentate this practice session.
So I'm just watching the first driver on track in this practice session, Richard Schaefer. He was the first driver out onto this Mugello circuit, and he's just about to start the first lap. So this is a great opportunity to have a look around the lap for the first time. He's just heading down the long pit straight. It's a very long pit straight here at Mugello. Very, very long, in fact, until you reach turn 1, which is a right-hand, almost hairpin. I suppose you can call it hairpin because it does do well over 180 degrees. It's a wide radius corner uphill, and then into a very sort of wide chicane at turns 2 and 3. It's easy to get out into the gravel here, so you have to be careful. We're just approaching another chicane as well. This one known as Materassi and Borgo San Lorenzo. Those are the 2 corners here, turns 4 and 5. And now another chicane, this time a right-left rather than a left-right. This is Casanova and Savelli, turns 6 and 7. There we go. And now we're heading uphill through 2 right-hand corners at Arrabbiato, that says, and Arrabbiata 2. So we've got Arrabbiata 1 and Arrabbiata 2. I read that wrong. Before heading into another chicane, this time left-right downhill, Scarpiera and Pelagio. And then towards turn 12, a right-hand hairpin, pretty much a carousel at this point, which is Corantaio, before we head down into the sweepers. The first of these corners known as Biondetti, after Clemente Biondetti, the pre-war Grand Prix racer for Alfa Romeo. And the final corner will be Busin. It's a long left-hand hairpin. Here we go. A real variety of lines you can take through here, but it's important to get a good exit out onto the extremely long start-finish straight. That was a lap of the Mugello circuit.
Well, it's a wonderful circuit, isn't it? It's such a fast, high-speed circuit. It provides some fantastic opportunities to test yourself as a driver. To just it seems like some of the corners really remind me of Parabolka nearly, especially the first corner, Parabolka at Monza. It just seems like so many fast corners where you have to control a throttle, and it's just so important to manage it so that you don't either burn up your tires or just lose time with understeer or oversteer throughout the corner.
Yeah, certainly, and tyres are certainly going to be tested to their limit. We've got so many sweepers, uphill chicanes, downhill chicanes. I'd be a little bit worried about the tyres today, and I haven't spoken to any of the drivers about the tyres. That was certainly something I was intending to do, but I didn't get the time for it. But I can imagine that the tyres won't be particularly liking this circuit. Schaefer's first lap interest, neither one that we followed, was a 1:52.291. So a quick first attempt, and currently we've had a couple of people setting representative lap times. I think the top 6 are actual lap times that aren't out laps, except Barbara has obviously had a bit of an off on his lap. So it's Schaefer now, followed by Siggy, Andrioni, Tabone and Baruki at the minute. But remember that some of the quickest drivers are still yet to set laps, including Bernard Vella, who has just set the fastest first sector of anyone. Watch that lap.
Indeed, watch that lap. And I have to say, from my own experience, the one tire that screams for help in their life is the front left tire around the circuit. So many fast right-hand corners. There are some left-hand corners that are fairly fast, but not nearly as many as such a high fast sweepers as the Arrabbiata corners or the very first San Donato corner. They're all so very fast, and you have to use up your front left tire. And I think that the key to doing well in this race is going to be managing your tire wear and making sure you know exactly. And I think what we're going to see is a lot of drivers are going to take the later point of the pit stop window, try and take the advantage of being able to take new tires and have the freshest tires they can at the end of the race.
Times are tumbling now. Risto Capit very briefly went to the top of the order before suddenly getting smashed by Richard Schaefer, rather, coming out of the blue and going about 9/10 of a second faster than him. Andrioni put his car second, less than a tenth of a second behind Schaefer, but now Siggy has come and thrashed them all 9/10 of a second ahead of that. So really, Risto Capit has gone from being top of the leaderboard about a minute ago to being almost 2 seconds down now. The times are properly tumbling. And it's now Siggy, Schaefer, Andrioni, Vella and Capit at this stage. And Siggy is going quicker still. He's fastest in the first sector again. 27 seconds pretty much flat in the first sector. And so far, he's the only driver to have got below the 150s in terms of the lap. Remember, this is only official practice at this point, not qualifying. But still, the drivers are properly going for it at this stage.
We have seen in the non-official practice, we have seen a time of 1:48 from Al Sapti. So there's still a lot of time on the left on the track for the drivers to find. And I think we're still going to find another second out of that time.
Well, we might well, and of course Al Sapti still hasn't set a representative lap. He's on one now. He's actually 3/10 down in the first sector, so maybe he's taking a little bit of a while to get up to pace, or maybe he's just keeping his cards close to his chest at this point in time. But whatever the case, Al Sabdi, certainly a driver we're expecting to come through later on, being top of the championship at the minute. But Kevin Siggy now is fastest in both of the first sectors. He's being held up a little bit in the third sector by one of the RPM Esports cars, but he still appears to be up on his lap. So let's see what he can do. He's 2/10 of a second ahead of anyone at this point in time. But as he crosses the line, that's going to improve. Here he goes, and it's a 1:49.329, which puts him over 6 seconds ahead of his nearest rival, Richard Schaefer. Oh, and now Bernard Vella goes and splits them. So Bernard Vella goes to second place, fastest third sector of anyone. But I'm sure Siggy can improve his third sector, actually. He had to back off slightly through the final corner due to one of the RPM Esports drivers being where he didn't want him to be. So the Novartis automotive car of Kevin Siggy surely has more pace to deliver here.
Absolutely, there's still a lot. There's still some time left in that car, and of course it's practice. So again, we're probably not gonna see the absolute fastest times yet. That's gonna be reserved for the qualifying period. And I presume these drivers aren't running low fuel loads either. They seem to be running for a fairly long time so far. without actually pitting in, drivers such as Kevin Siggy or Richard Schaefer appear to be running possibly even race stints, race stint attempts. And even that, if they are indeed doing race fuel laps right now, this could prove very interesting once they hit qualifying session.
Of course, it sounds a little bit weird to say they're doing a race stint, but you can just about get the feel for that, because this session, of course, 15 minutes long, and the pit window actually opens in the race after 15 minutes. So at least you can feel roughly how the tyres are going to feel at that time. And if you do end up pitting early due to being in traffic or something like that, and you go for the undercut through strategy, then that could be the ideal amount of practice you need, actually. But anyway, Risto Capit now goes to third in the session. He improves his lap by a whole 2 seconds there. So Capit obviously took a little bit of a while to get up to pace. Maybe he didn't get a clean lap the previous time. But now Capit is in third position, and I'm watching Hani Al-Sabdi, who appears to be going about 3/10 up. That's probably only going to put him ahead of Dario Andreoni to 5th at this point in time. So Al-Sabdi, not exactly the blistering lap times we've seen from him in the past, but I'm sure that he will excel in qualifying when he really gets the sight of blood.
Oh, no, absolutely, and we've seen faster times in his practice sessions earlier. It's just not a matter of, I'd say he's keeping his cards close to his chest and possibly, again, trying to run a slightly higher load of fuel in the car or something. We don't really know. We never know in practice sessions, and this is true for sim racing and real-life racing, where the cars in practice session are never the same as in qualifying sessions. As they're usually running slightly higher fuel loads, or the drivers are just not a little bit more relaxed and maybe not as quick. Maybe not as precise with their driving, so I think it's going to be quite a different story in qualifying.
Yeah, well, we were saying last time out, of course, that a lot of the time what the drivers will do is they'll do the majority of the practice session on their race setup just to get the feel for how the car will be at the start of the race, and then they'll go on to a qualifying setup for the last couple of laps of practice just so they can get into that qualifying mood before qualifying and hit the ground running effectively. But the actual qualifying session starts in just over a minute now, so that is when the times will properly go towards something.
Well, over 3 minutes, I think, to be precise. We still have 3 minutes of the practice session left. But yes, I think that's when we're gonna see everything, and it's a very long session as well. So we were a little bit maybe not caught out by this last week in casual races, but it's the same length of qualifying as it was last week. For anybody that's seen that race, it's 30 minutes, so it's going to be drivers don't necessarily have to do a lot of practice for qualifying in the practice session itself, because they have about 30 minutes to catch up, and they don't have a tire limit and they don't have a fuel load limit like they may have in real life. So it's of course in sim racing, if you have a 30 minutes qualifying session, you basically have a free reign for 30 minutes, and you can get up to speed at that point.
Yeah, certainly. It's definitely a spectacle to watch these cars thrashing around at the higher speeds that they can achieve. That, of course, we're going to see in qualifying, and well, that's when the real spectacle of the driving is. So we'll be looking out for who the really impressive drivers are in that session. Al-Sabdi, of course, is always a good one to watch, because as well as being fast, he's not really the smoothest of drivers. We normally say that second and third are the hot shots, really sort of gunning for it, and first place in a lot of championships is the one that manages to go just as quickly while being smooth. But with Al-Sabdi, he properly goes for it. He always looks on edge, but somehow always seems to be in control of it at the same time.
Yeah, that's the differences in driving styles, though. A lot of the time, we will see drivers which prefer more aggressive driving style, and maybe that's what Hani Al-Sabdi is capable of doing. Just putting that car on the very limit, maybe using his tires a bit more, but able to extract that a little bit more speed out of it. Rather than driving smoothly. I know I tend to be a very smooth driver, which definitely affects my performances in certain cars. And I think, for example, in these cars, it appears that possibly being a bit more aggressive is not necessarily a bad thing. However, on this racetrack, it may cause a problem with, as I said, the front left tire screams for help at the best of times on most cars around here and overheats pretty much all lap long, and it gives you very little grip. So even at the best of times, that's a problem. And with a driver who may be a bit more aggressive, that may cause a big problem throughout the race.
Certainly something you have to look out for, and certainly something that the drivers will be thinking about. Of course, these Porsches don't really weigh much, so there's not really going to be that much weight going to the tyres relatively compared to some of the other GT cars you might see going around here. But still, you can do a lot of damage to that tyre with cornering at high speeds, and drivers have to be careful of that, as the practice timer is now at 0. So the qualifying session is very nearly upon us. The practice timer has come to 0, and top of the session was Kevin Siggy with a 1:49.329. We've seen quicker than that in the previous sessions. Bernard Vella was second, followed by Risto Capit, Richard Schaefer, Dario Andreoni, Hani Al Sabdi, Garo Sarafian, Justin Baruki, who could still go slightly faster on this lap, Brandon Tabone, Gergo Baldi. So Baldi not quite on the pace yet. Omar Barbara and Sandro Zara. Those are the 12 drivers we have here today. It's a shame to only see 12 drivers, because we've seen as many as 15 in this championship in the past, but we still have 12 drivers here today. Oh, and Baruki's been into the gravel at the end of that lap, so that's not going to be any faster for him. And that is the end of the practice session. Bring on qualifying.
Now, this is going to be the exciting bit, and especially near the end of the qualifying session.
So we're just waiting for the wait time and the countdown to come to 0. There it goes. And now the half-an-hour qualifying session has got underway, and some of the drivers already heading to pit exit. I believe it's going to be Risto Capit, who is our first driver on track. So Risto Capit in the ACR Zaxby car is going to lead us out of the pits and around the track for the very first time, closely followed by Dario Andreoni. They want to get as many laps in as they possibly can. That's why they were first to the exit.
And of course, that gives you a bit of an advantage. And I think we've mentioned that before, that the first drivers out in qualifying always have that advantage of not having to worry about drivers in front of them, because whatever happens is their first lap is going to be the fastest of anybody on the track, because they'll be the first ones to do a lap. It gives you a little bit of freedom in terms of your feel. Some drivers prefer to not have a target to chase after, because you may be overdriving the car a little bit, trying to find a 1 or 2 tenths in a corner, while some other drivers may prefer to chase times. It's very much down to the driver's preference and kind of how their mindset works, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, I'm still watching Risto Capit going around on this this outlap. Of course, he's not pushing for it yet, and he shouldn't be, because he's still not on a flying lap yet. That will come just after this this next session. It's quite an old-fashioned style of circuit, this, with a lot of sweeping wide radius corners, as we were saying, like the Parabolica of Monza. But a lot of sweepers, a lot of round sort of carousel style corners. It's very suited to motorbikes. This circuit is, and indeed, it's one of the most famous MotoGP venues. When cars race here as well, it provides a great spectacle. It's not necessarily best suited to racing cars, but actually that adds to the charm of it sometimes. But not really a track I tend to get on well with, but it is seen as a proper driver's circuit.
It is. I actually love racing around here. It's very difficult, especially for the S's at the start. And something I quickly checked, the track has not had its layout changed since the very beginning of its existence in 1974, as far as I can see. So this is why it looks like a classic circuit, because it very much is, and it's a 1974 layout of a circuit. So it's very fast, and of course it must have gone through modernizations, and we can see that just by the curbs being so low and so wide on their certain exits. But there's still so much grass and so little room for error in some of the fastest sections of this circuit.
Yeah, definitely no room for error. Of course, you have the curbs on the exit of the corners, but just after the curbs, there's a strip of grass, and if you get onto that, then there's no stopping it. You know, the car's just going straight on, and there's gravel there to catch you. The car bounces over that, you lose a lot of momentum and a lot of time. And, well, after that, of course, there are walls. And while it's not as common to see a car actually reaching the wall here, the gravel traps can be just as vicious a lot of the time. You can't get beached on Assetto Corsa, but you can certainly lose a lot of time through it, and that's certainly not ideal. Risto Capit just coming through to finish the first flying lap of the session. So let's see what this time is going to be. It's not as quick as the lap that Siggy is currently on, but Capit crosses the line now, and it's a 1:49.399. That's pretty much what we saw as the best in practice. But Kevin Siggy already tops it with a 1:49.092. I reckon we will get cars in the 1:48s here in this session.
I reckon definitely so, and I think now the driver to watch will be Hani El Sabti, who just begun his first proper timed lap, as far as I can tell, and I think now he is going to be the driver to watch for this lap, but it doesn't look like he's too... No, he's definitely pushing the car. However, it's interesting. If you watch some of the fastest drivers, you don't always know if they're actually on a fast lap or not. Sometimes you may look at a corner and it seems very odd the way they have to take the first few chicanes, especially because you have to compromise your entry into the first of the two corners on the your first left-hander. And then at that point, you kind of have to maximize your exit speed. So it's the ultimate slow in, fast out mentality that you have to have around the circuit, especially for the S's.
Capit and Siggy again battling. Capit set the fastest second sector of anyone on that time before immediately being beaten to it by Kevin Siggy. So there's a real hot lap battle going on, and they're very close on circuit as well. I think Siggy can just about see Capit up ahead. He's got his target in his sight, and while passing him isn't his aim here, the two of them are having a real hot lap duel, which might be about to be interrupted by Al Sabti. But Al Sabti did make a mistake there that I saw in the second sector. He ran over the curb and over the grass, so Al Sabti's lap won't be as quick as it could be here. But out of the final corner comes Risto Capit. What's the lap going to be? It was quickest in the second sector initially, and it's not as quick as Siggy. Now, Siggy's actually coming through to better his lap, and it's a 1:48.751. That's over half a second quicker than anyone else. Siggy has this track nailed so far, and Al Sabti now puts in his first fast lap. It's 5th position at the minute, fastest first sector of anyone, but he lost a lot of time in the second and third sector, and that's what he has to work on later on in the session. But now Risto Capit beats him to that first sector, so Risto Capit fastest in the first sector now, and well, he's reacting to Siggy's sector there. In fact, Al Sabti's just beaten it again, so maybe the hot lap battles are going to be between Siggy, Capit, and Al Sabti here.
Well, I can tell you right now that it looked like this is the fastest lap that we have seen so far, including the previous practice, the unofficial practice. So this is definitely the fastest lap I have that this server has seen, as you may be able to see in as you can sometimes see, thankfully, to Assetto Corsa. But yes, I think he beat the fastest lap by about 2/10 so far. And now it's all on Hani El Sabti, I think, personally, to attempt to beat that time, because Risto Capit, while he is very quick, he just doesn't seem to have that speed in the final. But that's from what I can gather so far.
But watch Al Sabti now. He's really flying through the S's, through Biondetti, and he's currently fastest of anyone in both of the first sectors. He's almost a second up on his best lap so far, and if he can get a good exit to this final corner, he's going to be well and truly on pole position here. He's getting the slipstream from the car ahead. He's going almost 0.2 of a second up here as Hani Al Sabdi goes across the, well, very nearly across the line. And this is going to be pole position, surely it is. It's a 1:48.563, and we're still with over 20 seconds of the session remaining. But Al Sabdi, top of the order now by almost 0.2 of a second. It's going to be very difficult to beat that.
You're right, but there is only only and as much as 0.2 between Siggy and Al Sabdi, and I think Siggy still is able to get at least a little bit of time. And I've seen him losing a little bit in the final sector last time he did his lap. So, but I don't know if it's 0.2. But even so, just the absolutely immense speed of these two drivers is absolutely incredible. Also, we've also seen a very good lap from Bernard Vella, who's managed to overtake Risto Capet and nearly did a 1:48 himself, 1:49.065. This is a very good time from Bernard Vella.
Yeah, certainly. Bernard Vella now up into 3rd position, ahead of Risto Capet, who's down to 4th. And just behind them, actually, is Dario Andreoni. He's about 0.4 off Capet, but well, almost 0.5 actually, so he's a little way behind. There's a bit of a gap between 4th and 5th here, but what a lap that was for Hani Al Sabdi to beat Kevin Siggy's lap. But now I'm watching Gergo Baldi. Actually, there's a huge gap between 5th and 6th of almost a second. Baldi's trying to eat away at that. In fact, it's over a second. So between Andreoni and Baldi, there's about a second gap there. Baldi is going up on his lap, but by nowhere near enough. Surely Richard Schaefer is improving by more, but he's further behind in the lap. So let's watch what Baldi can do first. He's going about 3/4 of a second up. Yeah, he gets a good exit to the final corner, and Baldi's going to improve his lap surely. Yeah, here he comes, and it's a 1:50.3. Now 0.377. Now we're waiting for Richard Schaefer, who's going almost a second quicker than his lap, and that would actually put him ahead of Baldi. So Schaefer and Baldi having a bit of a hot lap battle further down the order here for 6th position, as Kevin Siggy now starts to put in a new best for him, a new best in the making rather. Of course, he needs to hold it for the rest of the lap. But anyway, here comes Schaefer across the line, and it does move him ahead of Gergo Baldi into 6th position. So Richard Schaefer now up into 6th position ahead of Gergo Baldi. And those two, of course, are 4th and 5th in the championship, separated by 4 points. So that's significant there from Baldi. As Kevin Siggy now sets a fastest second sector time of anyone. So Siggy is on it here as he chases Al Sabdi's lap.
Unluckily, he made a mistake going straight into the 3rd sector. So unluckily, this is not going to be an improvement by much at the very least. And at the moment, he seems to be down by about half a tenth on his best time. So very unluckily for Siggy, but I don't think he's going to be improving past Al Sabdi. But it all depends on this final corner if he can maybe improve his time a little bit anyway. And I think he will be able to, but only by a couple thousandths of a second at best.
Well, it wasn't a particularly good exit there, so I think that Siggy is not going to go quicker than his lap. And as he crosses the line, it's not quicker. It's actually only down by 7 thousandths of a second, so it was close. But he lost it all in that mistake in the 3rd sector there, and that could have been a lap that was on for pole there. It looked very, very close to Al Sabdi's laps in the 1st and 2nd sector there, but no improvement there from Kevin Siggy, and he's just got to try again, really. Meanwhile, Richard Schaefer is improving his lap by about half a second here, coming down into the final corner as he chases Dario Andreoni. He might just do it here, actually. He's exiting the final corner now. It's going to be close between him and Andreoni. There's 0.6 of a gap in terms of their lap, and it's registering 0.6 of a second on the delta time, so it's going to be close, and Schaefer moves ahead of Andreoni by just 8 thousandths of a second. So Schaefer now up into 5th position, demoting Andreoni to 6th, but it's very close between the two of them.
And just as I thought, the times are definitely tumbling down for the entire grid. If we looked at the official practice session, the times were definitely not nearly this fast for so many drivers, and And yeah, I think most drivers were still testing the practice setup. Also, something very or the race setup. Sorry, something very interesting is that I'm noticing also is that some of the white cars on the track, such as Richard Schaefer, actually became a bit brown from the dirt on the road now. So in the race, you may see a bit of a color change from the cars by the looks of it.
I can't actually see that, but I can imagine that that could happen. Siggy again, he was faster than his personal best in the first sector, but now he's abandoned that lap and gone back to the pits. So maybe he made another mistake in the third sector there. His second sector appeared to be fine. So maybe another mistake there from Kevin Siggy, and needs to stop doing that, because although we have over half of the qualifying session still to go, it's always good to just put down the quick laps early, and then be in a situation at the end of the session where you're not under masses of pressure to set the quick laps then. But Siggy still with a 1:48.751 in second position now, behind Hani Al Sabdi, and not going any quicker with that last lap as he had to abandon back to the pit lane. Meanwhile, Justin Baruki is improving his lap in 9th, but doesn't appear to be moving ahead of anyone. So go ahead with what you were going to say.
Oh, I think that actually, Kevin, that was a prime example of you can still do fast laps the second time around on a set of tires that were ready after putting in a fast lap. But I think you cannot do as fast of a lap and as on the edge once you do overheat, maybe start overheating that front left tire. And it's just that the car becomes much more unstable, and you just cannot get that power down and cannot turn as quickly and rapidly. And it just appears that you can only do one lap that can challenge Hani Al Sabti's time before having to go back to pits for a new set of tires.
Now, watching Bernard Vella, it's been a good first couple of sectors for Vella. He's just about on the same sort of lap that he was on before now, but of course he's not actually going to move ahead of anyone with a time anytime soon, because he's a little way behind Kevin Siggy here. What he's mainly attempting to do is just get ahead from or get away from the cars behind him. For example, Risto Caput is posing a threat, and Bernard Vella needs to just improve his lap and keep improving his lap to make sure that he doesn't get demoted, really. But of course, a bonus would be if he did manage to string together a perfect lap and did get ahead of one of the cars ahead of him. That doesn't appear to be happening at the minute, and that lap, in fact, wasn't as quick, as he didn't have the best of final corners there. But as Vella crossed the line, he's still in third position here.
Yes, I think honestly this is a fairly safe position, to be perfectly honest. It's definitely a very very fast lap, and at the moment the only driver I can really see beating it is honestly Risto Caput, because everyone else seems to not quite have the same pace. And it would be nice for Bernard to improve his time, but I think at this point he's pretty much safe in third, and it's going to be very difficult to beat the Hani Al Sabti's or Kevin Siggy's time.
Yeah, definitely. Al Sabti and Siggy certainly appear to be in a class of their own at the minute. Up the front, the only two drivers under 1:49 at the minute. They're in the 1:48s, and those are some pretty blistering laps there. But those two drivers away and gone at the minute.
Absolutely, and I still can't believe that it's 0.2 of a difference between those two drivers. They are both very much pushing their cars, and as Risto Caput apparently improves by a couple thousandths of a second again. He just doesn't seem to be able to break that barrier. But the gaps between cars on this track appear to be very wide. And I think that may have to do with the nature of the track and just it kind of accentuating the driver's skill due to the very important way that you have to basically make sure that your lines through the corners are perfect, that your throttle application is perfect, your speed in and speed out are perfect. It's just a track which requires perfection to be able to be any good at it.
Yeah, it's a real driver's circuit, as I was saying before, and it takes a lot of skill to be good at it, but a very different kind of skill to at most circuits, of course. At a lot of circuits, it's about precision and about just accelerating early and braking late. Here, there's a real variety of lines to take, and it's all about being the most technically accurate, and that's a very different sort of skill to just getting on the brakes late. So it's not your standard modern circuit. As I said, it is more kind of old-fashioned, and there are some drivers that will relish in that, and there will be some drivers that will really not enjoy it, especially seeing as this is such an unforgiving circuit if you make a mistake.
Yeah, also if you look at any drivers like Kevin Siggy or Hani El-Sabti, anybody who is very, very quick around here, and if you look at their lines, you can see that there's a margin of error between the driver hitting the grass and still remaining on the concrete or the asphalt, depending on whether they're on the curb, is so tiny that one little slip up could mean essentially an instantaneous spin, because the cars are so loaded in certain corners to one side, and they suddenly lose all the grip on that side. They'll just go completely sideways. An example of that would be them going from Arabiadas. There, between the two very fast right-hand corners, there is this one strip of a slight bit of runoff that you can go on just as the curb exactly in between the two corners, and those drivers just go so very close to touching the grass there, and if they do, the car is so loaded to the right-hand side, to the left-hand side, sorry, that it just completely goes. There's no way to save it at that point.
Siggy's on a good lap. It's not been his best first sector, but he's really pushing here in the second. It's been pretty much the same as his previous best so far, although he didn't have the best of chicanes there. I think he touched the grass on the inside there, actually. It was certainly an interesting line, but he's still pushing, and he's still there in terms of his lap, so it's still a possibility that he could improve here. In fact, that's pretty much it's pretty much been exactly the same first and second sector that he's set before, just slightly slower, and well, he's not lost any motivation here. He's losing a little bit of time now, and he has a bit of a slide. To be honest, I think the lap's over.
It is, and it's been pretty much over since that chicane earlier in Casanova. He just touched the grass a little bit on the inside of the corners, and he just didn't quite have the line, didn't quite carry enough speed and momentum for the corners to be able to maintain that lap speed, that gap in the lap that he had in the first sector. And it's just it seems that Kevin Siggy may be getting a little bit tired and getting a little bit of the lines wrong, or maybe he needs a minute of a break, but that's obviously only for him to know.
That does tend to happen at this stage of a qualifying session. It's just sort of 20 minutes in, the drivers start to get tired and the times just don't fall. And I haven't seen an improvement in time in the top 5 since probably about 10 minutes ago. So really, they have started to level off a bit. But it tends to be that we get a bit of a mad dash in the final 5 minutes or so, where drivers realise that time's running out, and suddenly they're all fired up and trying to go quicker. But sometimes it's just too little, too late.
I think Hani El-Sabti actually is playing it perfectly. What he did was he did his fast lap, and then decided that he'll just take a break. He won't be coming out until he feels like it, which is probably the final few minutes, to maybe get his bearings on the car again and make sure that he's ready for the race itself. But I like his approach, because that means that he can still react to any time stumbling down later, and he will not be as tired as somebody like Kevin Siggy, who is driving for a while, and it is extraordinarily taxing on a driver to be driving at qualifying pace for lap and lap and lap on end. And it just manages to creep into your kind of brain, and you cannot seem to find a better way for a corner. You start overdriving, and it just never goes right.
And remember that that tiredness does carry over into the race as well, because we don't have one night between the qualifying or the race and the race, like you do in most racing series. Of course, this is sim racing, which does tend to have the qualifying and the race in quick succession. In fact, the race will start pretty much as qualifying finishes here. We're going to have about a 10-minute break as we have a little advertisement break, but after that it'll just be straight into the race, and the drivers really don't get much breathing time. But Siggy is pushing. He's just set his best in the first sector, and well, now we're waiting to see what he can do in the second and third sectors as well. And Al Sabdi might well be looking on and worrying a bit here. Siggy is already registered as being about a 10th of a second up on his best, according to the Delta time. And remember that the gap to Al Sabdi is only 0.188. So Siggy, oh wow, it's the fastest second sector of anyone. So if he can hold this lap, this could be quickest from Kevin Siggy. Let's watch him in the third sector. The third sector is the longest sector of all of these, and that means the most opportunity to make mistakes or for things to change. In fact, yeah, he's not had the best of hairpins there. He could still salvage this lap in the final sector. He had a decent exit to the hairpin, even if he didn't have a good entry. And remember that there's still one more hairpin to go, and if you get a good exit here, then you can get a fantastic drive down the final straight. This could still be on for pole here, because he had a good hairpin, but I think he's just about missed out on it. It might still be quicker than his personal best. Let's see it as he crosses the line. It's going to be a 1:48.659, which puts him within a 10th of a second of Hani Al Sabdi, but doesn't move him up to first position. So close.
His mistake wasn't actually in the hairpin though, as much as you think. That was a small mistake, but he lost very little time there. It's making mistakes in hairpins is very deceptive sometimes. Where he did lose most of his time compared to his first fastest time before this was actually through the chicane after the Arabiatas, after the fast right-handers. It seems that he lost, he may have gone on the throttle a bit too early or something, maybe just lost a bit of traction on the rear end and lost a 10th of a second there. It's so very easy to do through fast corners because it's just a small little mistake and it costs you a 10th or two, and that can cost you a pole position, which it so far did for Siggy.
Well, it certainly looks like it. There's no way of telling exactly what lap he would have set otherwise, but it certainly looks like it cost him the provisional pole position there. He's going out again though, and well, he's only going to get one more run at it, I expect. If I was Al Sabdi here, I might be starting to look at that and wonder what Siggy's capable of. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Al Sabdi coming out of the pits just to defend that pole position soon. He hasn't got much time left to actually react to that, but as we have 4 minutes pretty much remaining in this session, it's getting tense.
It is getting very tense, and I think the drivers still feel the most are Kevin Siggy and Hani Al Sabdi. Although, to be honest, with Hani Al Sabdi's pace, I wouldn't be surprised if he can take another 1 or 2 tenths of the time if he really tried. But also, if that's the case, I think that he doesn't really worry about it too much if he's going to start first or second. If he does start second, I think he will still be pretty confident about his chances for actually winning this race. And of course, starting first or second is still an advantage either way, considering you're starting from the first row of the grid ahead of everybody else, and you just have a clear track in front of you, except for maybe a car being slightly ahead of yourself to your left. Or I think it's to your left in this track.
Well, that's providing you get a good start, of course. If you bog down off the start or react slightly late to the lights, you can find yourself getting swamped. And of course, that's what happened to Al Sabdi at the last race. He put himself on pole position by 0.3 of a second. But Al Sabdi's never been the best of starters, actually. It does tend to be that someone else leads into turn 1. So as much as Al Sabdi looks to be in control of things at the minute, that's not to say that he will still be there at the end of the first lap.
Also, sorry, the actual pole position is on the right-hand side. I just looked at it as we were coming by. But also, yes, that's very interesting because I haven't ever actually seen Hani Al Sabdi start, to be perfectly honest. So I think it's going to be interesting. And if the best drivers aren't always the best starters, we can definitely. It's kind of a black art to some drivers. I tend to be okay at starts, but tend to be a bit crap in certain other areas when I'm driving.
Have a look at Mark Webber, Rubens Barrichello, or even more modern Lando Norris. Those drivers, of course, all seen as very quick drivers, with Barrichello and Webber, of course, having won several Formula One races. But those drivers pretty much never got off the grid well. So it does happen that sometimes you do make mistakes off the start. And Al Sabdi is one of those drivers that does tend to get swamped a little bit.
Yes, but then again, turn one is not always indicative of how the race is going to go, unless it's Monaco or some other very tight circuit. And even then, it's not. You can always play a bit of a strategy game in a race where pit stop is mandatory, and of course, that's what I'd expect for somebody like Al Sabdi to do, even if he wasn't able to maintain that pole position. As Kevin Siggy, indeed, is not faster this lap. I think he sacrificed it fairly early on after making a bit of a mistake, and he's going on his final timed lap, and Al Sabdi is not going to respond.
No, Al Sabdi is not leaving the pits here. So if Siggy can put together a good lap this time, then that will be it, because Al Sabdi won't be able to respond to it. I'm going to watch this lap with interest from Kevin Siggy. It's going to be his last chance at pole position, and probably anyone's last chance of beating Al Sabdi here. He's just going through the first sector at the minute, the first sector being the shortest of the three sectors, and it's not actually quicker. In fact, he's about 0.2 of a second down on Al Sabdi through the first sector there. But we've seen that Siggy tends to be blistering in the second sector. That's the sector where he's quick. So let's see what this second sector is going to be like from Siggy. He runs it over the curb slightly there, but keeps it within the limits. And as we head up the hill, Siggy's still going for it, still absolutely flying through there. There's a driver who gets off the line, and Siggy gets very bumpy on the exit. Again, it's not the best of second sectors, but he's still there or thereabouts in terms of lap times. And if he can pull this together in the final sector, it could still be on for pole position here. So Siggy cannot give up now, and there's no point in giving up, seeing as it's this late in the session. The timer has ticked to 0. Most of the drivers are in the pits. I don't see anyone else going quicker here. In fact, Siggy himself isn't registered as going quicker here, but can he salvage anything in the final corner? This is his last chance here. He needs to get a good final corner, and as he exits it, does he get a good exit? He's right on the limit, look at that! But Siggy does not get a good enough exit, and as he crosses the line, it's not going to be quicker. So Hani Al Sabdi takes pole position here at Mugello, followed by Kevin Siggy, less than 1/10 of a second behind in terms of fastest lap. And then it's Bernard Vella, over half a second behind actually. So a bit of a gap there. And then it's Risto Capit, Richard Schaefer, Dario Andrioni, Gergo Baldi, Brandon Tabone, Justin Barucchi, Garo Serafian, Sandro Zara, and Omar Barbara, who make up the 12 drivers that we have here at the Mugello circuit for round 4 of the Sim Racing Malta Continental Cars Limited Porsche 911 GT3 Championship.
And I think that was an exciting session, and Hani Al Sabdi did a fantastic job to put on pole position with just one attempt, really.
So we're gonna have a 5-minute break now, commercial break, following which we'll go on straight on to the race.
Hey, Dad, can we give Lisa a ride home?
Sure.
Thanks for the ride.
The new Porsche Cayenne. There's nothing like the feeling when you sports car together.
Gigabit Internet issa f'Malta. Gawdi mill-Giga Power biss mal-Malta Flexi.
So we're 45 seconds away from the start of the race. This fourth round of the Continental Cars Limited Porsche Cup 2018, brought to you by Sim Racing Malta.
Just seen a little bit of interesting banter in the Facebook chat. Hani Al Sabdi typed "Come on, Siggy" during that last lap, and Capit put a Pinocchio nose emoji to say, no, you're not thinking that. But anyway, as you say, 20 seconds now until the start of the race. It's Hani Al Sabdi on pole, followed by Kevin Siggy, Bernard Vella, and Risto Capit. Richard Schaefer, Dario Andrioni, Gerger Valdi, Manon Tabot, Justin Barucchi, Gary Serafian, Sandro Zara, and Omar Barbara. And we're now waiting for the lights to come on. Here we go, and when they go out, we will be away, and it's go! Here we go at the start of the race, and Al Sabdi is away in the lead, but again, it's not the best of starts for Al Sabdi, and Siggy is going to the outside line, has a good run down the straight. Can he hold it around the outside? He needs to brake later than Al Sabdi here into turn 1, and just hold it. There's contact between the leaders. Al Sabdi gets sideways, somehow holds it, and Siggy gets the lead of the race. He has the inside line, and Kevin Siggy is through. So Kevin Siggy's through, and I've got no idea how that wasn't worse contact there. And just there's contact in the pack. Tabone's involved, Andrioni's involved. So Andrioni from 6th gets turned around. I think Zara was involved as well. There were a couple of guys who were involved in that little incident there, but I think everyone's still running, and it's Kevin Siggy leading this race.
Actually, that accident at the back will be reviewed by the stewards later on. Just took note now, and obviously it will be reviewed after the race.
We've heard. We've heard it here now from the stewards, of course. Thankfully, we do have live stewards to be on the post, and hopefully that's going to get a result. Hopefully there was, well, I presume there was absolutely no malicious intent in that. But as we have battle for the lead now, Hani Al Sabdi going to the outside of Kevin Siggy, trying to maybe have a look into the hairpin, but this is way too difficult of a corner to go on the outside. But it's so very close to the back of him that I think he's gonna have him sometime sooner or later, because so aggressive at the moment. Hani Al Sabdi going for possibly breaking into the final corner, and he cannot quite get it, and so very close to even more contact.
Now watch for the slipstream. The car behind gets an effective speed boost by using the car ahead as a windshield. So Siggy will be helping Al Sabdi along in a straight line here. Al Sabdi is really tucked into that slipstream there, and maybe he can pull out of it into turn 1. He's getting closer and doesn't go to the inside, but at the end of that first lap, it's Siggy leading from Al Sabdi, Capit, Vella, Schaefer, Baldi, Barucchi, Tabone, Barbara, Serafian, and then Zara and Andrioni are 11th, and in fact Andrioni's in the pits, so something's happened with Andrioni. I saw him getting tipped sideways earlier in the lap, so possibly some damage there, and he's in the pits. But up front, Al Sabdi still hampering Siggy, and I'm sure he will be until Siggy makes an error, if he does. But Al Sabdi is just going to have to stick with him and try to force a mistake from Kevin Siggy. These two, of course, had a proper battle in qualifying, and now they're having a proper battle on track as well.
Yes, of course, and they are having a proper battle right here, and it just looks like Alsapti is a bit more comfortable with the car at the moment, but Siggy's not giving any room for Alsapti to poke his nose into so far. And I think if Siggy can just keep his lines, can make no mistakes, which of course we've seen him make very small mistakes in qualifying, but not many major mistakes by any means. I think if he can just keep going, I think he may be able to battle off Alsapti.
Yeah, you have to remember as well, the drivers are being more careful in the race, and they're actually running higher fuel loads, of course, which makes the car more stable. So mistakes are less common in the race than in qualifying, but can still occur, and Alsapti just needs to stick there in case it happens to Kevin Siggy. And now, of course, he'll be getting the slipstream again as we head down this straight. And he's still right with him, actually, and he might have an opportunity to overtake here. The gap is just about, well, they're side-by-side, in fact. So there's no gap. They're side-by-side again. There's door-to-door contact. And can Alsapti do a Siggy on Siggy? Yes, he can. Look at that. Siggy gets sideways, and Alsapti is going to have the inside line here. Fantastic move around the outside of turn 1. Hani Alsapti takes the lead of the race, and Siggy sideways again.
Yeah, it just looks like Alsapti had so much better exit out of the final corner and just managed to keep it so very close to Siggy, who's now, I think, going to have to more worry about Risto Capit on his rear than being able to get back on Alsapti. It just seems like Alsapti has this race pace that's so much faster than Siggy and just so much more confident through the corners. Not having needed to push, it nearly looks like he doesn't have to push the car nearly as hard compared to somebody like Siggy, but also to another thing that's happening right now on track is that we're also having Schaefer very, very close currently to Vela, and they've also been in a small little battle for since the start of the race, but so far a lot of cars still very close together.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, we've lost our first driver, Dario Andrioni. Of course, we still come into the pits at the end of lap 1. He qualified 6th, a very good qualifying session for him, but he's retired from the race already after an incident on the first lap, so we've lost 1. But now, of course, it's all about the battle for the lead. Alsapti has got past Siggy, but can Siggy stick with him? He's certainly not hampering Alsapti in the same way that Alsapti was to him, and in fact, I think Capit's gaining on Siggy, so maybe we'll see a battle for second here. And of course, there's no saying that Alsapti is going to get away, so it could turn into a battle for the top 3. Let's have a look at the gaps. It's 9, almost a second between Alsapti and Siggy, and then Capit is less than a second behind Siggy as well. So we do have a proper 3-way battle for the lead at the minute, and Alsapti is getting away a bit, but he's still right there, remember?
Yep, there's still a battle going on for 4th place currently. Schaefer absolutely all over Bernard Vela, completely side by side going into the first corner. However, Vela just having the inside and not for Schaefer not quite able to pull off an Alsapti on it. But both of them are also having to hold off Gergo Baldi, which isn't a slow driver by any means. And it looks like it's a 3-way battle for the 4th place, which may not be the podium place, but it could very well be by the end of the race.
Well, it could be. Remember, we still got over 53 minutes, and some of that, of course, is pit stop window. These drivers will have to make a mandatory pit stop, so strategy could be another thing that comes into play. And the order you see now might absolutely not be the order by the end of this race. So it's certainly not over yet, even though Alsapti is getting away in the lead a bit. In fact, now that he's been released from behind Siggy, he's just set a blistering 1st and 2nd sector, which wouldn't have been too out of place in qualifying. So Alsapti properly running away from Siggy now, but behind him, still the battle for 4th is raging, and Capit appears to be getting closer to Siggy.
It looks to me it looks like the gap is actually increasing. In fact, it's 1.4 and 1.4 seconds from Alsapti to Siggy and from Siggy to Capit. So I think it's actually kind of stagnating up in front for now. However, what is not stagnating is again the battle between Vela and Schaefer, who right now Schaefer is all over the back of Vela. Can he get the slipstream and try to this time finish it off around the turn 1 and get the braking point quite right? But I don't think he can. I think Vela doesn't have the pace disadvantage that Siggy quite had. and he's a lot better on the exit compared to Schaefer, especially on that inside. So I think that Schaefer at the moment is going to have quite a lot of trouble trying to overtake Vela, even though he does seem to be a little bit quicker. But with all that said, he still has to watch out for Garibaldi. Any move can end up in him losing a place rather than gaining one.
There was a mistake from Schaefer there. He got slightly sideways on the exit of one of those chicanes there and dropped back almost behind Baldi, but he still kept it from Baldi for the minute. But as you say, three-way battle for fourth position, and a very close one. But I was going to say something then, and I've just completely forgotten what it was. I'm sure it was about Richard Schaefer. Yeah, of course, Schaefer was attempting to go for the outside line around turn 1. We've seen it done so far this race from both Siggy and Al Sabdi. Siggy on the first lap, of course, Al Sabdi on the second lap. What surprised me about that was that they were actually pretty much side by side going into the corner, and normally that means the car on the inside has the advantage because of the shorter route around the corner. But in this situation, the driver on the outside was just able to hold on. So obviously there is still grip out there, and they can utilise that outside line, which is unusual to see, but it is possible. And well, Schaefer was trying it, didn't quite pull it off there, but it is possible. And now, well, Baldi getting ominously close in the rear wing. So will Baldi go for it here down into turn 1? He's looking to the outside. Now, will this be a third move around the outside? He didn't quite get himself far enough alongside there, and well, still it's Vela in 4th, Schaefer in 5th, and Baldi in 6th.
I think the key is actually to get more than just an overlap, as Baldi goes completely sideways, trying to keep behind Schaefer as close as he can. Goes sideways and loses nearly a second to Schaefer, but holds it on track, and somehow the gap hasn't actually widened by as much as it could have. Baldi just showing his great skills of being able to manage the car and keep it on the track. However, what I think that you have to do into turn 1 is actually already have more than just an overlap when you start braking. I think you have to be slightly either exactly even and be just a little bit quicker, or be ahead of the driver if you want to pull off and move on the outside, so that they cannot just drive away with a braking with just a better exit out of turn 1 and a better drive for turn 1. I think you just have to have that advantage coming in.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because that's what you tend to have for tight chicanes and things like that. But as I said, the thing that surprised me was that they were side by side going into the corner. So I would have expected the car on the inside line to come right ahead, but in both of those occasions, that wasn't what happened. But I think with Schaefer on Vela and then with Baldi on Schaefer, what happened was the car didn't quite get alongside, so the driver on the outside had to yield there, as I'd expect would happen. But well, still they're close here, and in fact those three drivers there separated by less than a second and a half from each other. So still 4th place through to 6th, well and truly up for grabs.
Yes, I think there's still a lot of places up for grabs, in fact, and it just depends on how the drivers can manage to pull it off. And of course, any mistakes from any drivers, any retirements later on, which hopefully is going to be none from now on, we may end up in, of course, drivers getting promoted in their spots. But however, it looks like there definitely some places that are completely set in stone so far in the race. And it's going to be, and I highly doubt that even pit stops are going to make a big difference in this matter. Is that the top 3 podium places at the moment are separated by about 3 seconds each. So, and this gap seems to be increasing. So I think they have definitely found their own pace and their own places in the race so far.
Well, so far, of course, but we're still yet to go into the pit stop stages, and strategy can change a whole race for anyone sometimes. So. Well, that will start in 2.5 minutes. The pit window opens when we're 15 minutes of the way through the race. We are now just approaching the 13 minutes through mark, and well, then of course we will have 2 minutes remaining until the pit window. What you'll see a lot of drivers doing is, if they're running within a certain buffer of the car ahead, they'll pit just to try to get that undercut, get onto the fresher tyres quicker, get the clean air, and hopefully get ahead of them. But if a driver's running in clean air, they'll want to utilise that clean air and try to pit as close to the middle of the race as they can, just so their tyres don't go off later on in the race. And that means it really does depend on who you're running around on track and how you feel about the battle at the time.
I'll be honest, I don't think we're going to see too many early stuffs from the leaders. I think that'll be way too risky at this point, and drivers seems to be fairly spread out. But when you do get back into this race, into a pack of cars, and of course then you have no race as to get by quickly, and then you start losing time rather than gaining time. So because of the battling you have to deal with the slower drivers. So I think, even though Siggy would be the only driver to do to manage this kind of a pull.
The stewards will be also now reviewing the accident that just happened now between Garo Sarafian, yes, and Brendan Tabone, because it seems that Garo Sarafian pushed Brendan Tabone off the track.
Right, well that would have been for 8th position there between Tabone and Sarafian. I don't believe that I saw that. Well, I know I didn't see that one, of course. But yeah, good to see that the live stewards are on it. And oh, Gerger Baldi's out. Where's Baldi gone? He was fighting for 4th position with Vella and Schaefer, and all of a sudden he's out of the race. So we didn't see that. Whether that's been a disconnection or an accident, I don't know. But we've lost Gerger Baldi, 4th in the championship, and that's a pretty big name we've lost now.
Yes, Garibaldi, a very well known to me sim racer, which usually says that they're not a slow driver by any means. But what we're also seeing is that the battle that you mentioned is also all raging now, with Bernard Vella being attacked by Schaefer. But yes, and going to the outside again, Schaefer trying the same move as he tried before, but I don't think he can do it without an overlap play. This was again the same problem that earlier. However, he gets a much better exit and goes to the inside. Has a much better exit of one, and he's going to be on the outside of the second chicane as there's contact. Contact with Schaefer and Vella, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. But Vella definitely lost a lot of time from that move. And Schaefer, this is a very odd situation, because they were side by side, and I'm not entirely sure who would be at fault there, and I don't know if this may be reviewed by stewards or not.
Yeah, well, I'm just
it will be reviewed later on, for sure.
Just looking back at the live stream to see if I can pick out any sort of blame there. Well, I don't want to apportion blame to anyone for that. It was a very close call. They were just fighting for position. Schaefer went to turn into the corner. Vella was still there, but of course Schaefer will argue that Vella was not on the inside line. That Vella, well, really, I'd say a lot of people were trying to settle for a racing incident there, so I'm not going to judge it, but the pit window is now open, so we're going to see the strategy coming in very soon.
And so far, I don't think we've seen too many pits. Possibly... no, I haven't. Actually, yes, Sandra Zahra has actually been in the pit so far. I've seen that, and it looks like Brendan Tabone also was in the pits a bit earlier. So 2 drivers so far pit at the earliest stage of the pit stop window. But I don't think we're going to see many drivers pit until pretty much the closing minutes, as I'm even seeing Sandro Zara completely off the track, and I'm not sure what's going on there.
No, I've just seen an interesting message in the Facebook YouTube chat. What am I saying? Facebook stream chat from Mario Sacho, who says, is there any club for amateurs to start their virtual racing career? Well, a good place to do it would actually be here at SimRacing Malta, because we run non-championship events, so casual races we call them, every now and again, usually on a Thursday, and those are not in these Porsches. We race pretty much anything we like, really. We have casual races often aimed at bringing in new sort of sponsors or showing off new cars or circuits, and they are often a very good place for people to just get involved with SimRacing Malta and there are people of all different skill ranges in those races, and as they're non-championship, of course, it's not that you have to be a blistering driver, of course. So yeah, definitely get in touch with our Facebook group, and maybe we'll see you on the grid soon.
And also to add to that, Assetto Corsa is actually a great sim to start off with. I think it's one of the best sims to get a good feeling for how race cars behave, and just generally it gives you so much feedback on what the cars are doing. There's a massive community following for Assetto Corsa, so if there's anything you need, you usually easily find help. And again, the community is massive, and even if you just like 1 or 2 tracks, which I know a lot of people just drive this simulator for the Nürburgring Nordschleife and just keep on driving it as a track day. Hey, this is I think that it's a great sim to start your sim racing career off if you're interested in that.
No, just watching the cars coming through to see if anyone pits on this lap. I don't actually know if anyone's pitted at all yet.
Yeah.
I think.
Two drivers, Brandon Tabone and Sandro Zara, were both in pits at the very beginning of this pit stop window, but I don't think we're going to see any pit stops until pretty much the very end. Maybe maybe next time around we may see 1 or 2, but I don't think we're going to see any until 2 or 1 minute to go.
Yeah, so the 2 drivers at the back of the order, that would be, of course, ahead of the 2 retirements. But, well, still the drivers up front going quickly. Al Sabdi just set a fastest second sector of anyone, despite being on worn tyres. He's been driving those tyres for almost 20 minutes now. Maybe it's just now that they're properly getting up to temperature. Maybe he'll want to stay out until as late in the stint as he can, just to maximise that, because it might actually be that the tyres have their optimum grip right now.
It could be, but I highly doubt it. I think it's just mainly saving tires, and just if you get into a groove, sometimes you don't. You take care of your tires. Maybe he just realized that he can push a little harder because the tires are going to go in a few minutes anyway, and he can just he doesn't have to worry about overheating the front left, which again would be the biggest concern I would have with any car on this track. And I think that he's basically just preparing himself to get as big of a gap as he can to pit in very soon.
Yeah, again, the drivers all going past the pit lane without really looking at it. They will have to pit in the next 2 laps, I believe, because the pit window is coming to an end very shortly. So the stops are going to start coming in pretty soon now, but probably not this lap.
As we have pit in from Gara Safarian. Sarafian, sorry. Oh god. I can't read.
That's fine. Lebanese name.
Yes, and luckily, I also, even though my name is completely terrible, I may also be terrible with some other names. But yes, no, I think at the moment, again, we're going to see most drivers come in at the very late stages, and Omar Barbara is also in pits. Interestingly enough, I'm seeing Risto Caput losing a lot of time to Kevin Siggy, who's now maintaining gap to Hani Al-Sabti, that gap of 3 seconds. I'm not sure. I don't think Hani is maintaining pace. I think Kevin Siggy is actually slightly up this pace from early on in the race, and Risto just cannot keep up. And the gap between Caput and Schaefer at the moment, I think, is actually smaller than the gap between Caput and Siggy, or it kind of fluctuates between similar amounts at this point already.
Also in the pits on that lap was Omar Barbara. So we're looking at the top 6 drivers who haven't pitted yet, but I believe that everyone is still in their effective order because it was the bottom 4 drivers that decided to pit early. Al Sabdi stays out this time. He will probably have to pit this lap to avoid running over the pit window time. Yeah, he'll have to pit this lap, I'm sure. So Al Sabdi, or no, he might just be able to do one more. We'll have to see. But anyway, Al Sabdi stays out, Siggy stays out, as does the rest of the top 6 here. The top 5 anyway. Just looking at Justin Baruki, but I don't expect he'll pit in. Although he does. So Justin Baruki now also into the pits. That's from 6th position, and that means that the top 5 drivers are the drivers who haven't stopped yet, and the bottom 5 drivers are the drivers that have done.
Indeed, and it just looks like we're currently we're gonna see all the drivers in front pit in at the same lap. This may be a little bit chaotic from the top 2 drivers, but I don't think we're gonna have too many issues with that. But what it does also appear to be is that basically all drivers are waiting until the very last possible moment to pit in. And as I thought, I think it's because the pit window is in the first half of the race. They want to get the tires to last as little as they can in the second stint, because they will still have to manage about 35 minutes on a set of tires after they manage about 25 this stint. So there's going to be that discrepancy, and I think it's going to be a bit more difficult to go for the second stint without starting to lose pace by the end.
The pit lane is about to become very hectic indeed. They're all going to have to pit in on this lap. Anyone who stays out is going to run over the pit window time, so hopefully everyone remembers that. And the top 5 drivers will have to pit this lap. In comes Al Sabdi from the lead. So Hani Al Sabdi pits the car from the lead of the race. Kevin Siggy is in from second. Let's watch Fristo Capit coming in from third as well. Yeah, he remembers. And now it's just Schaefer and Vella to go. Al Sabdi already leaving his box now, and Siggy just behind him. Appears to have gained time in there. But Al Sabdi still ahead out of the 2. Capit stops in his box. Schaefer's coming in. Vella is coming in. That means all of the drivers made it in before the end of the pit stop time. And I believe that there will be absolutely no changes to the order at all. In fact, the interesting thing was that there were no changes to the order throughout the entire pit stages, because it just happened to be that the bottom 5 were the drivers who pitted first.
Yeah, I'm actually not surprised. You wouldn't risk it as a front runner to be in to actually come out in between the back markers, and as a back marker, you don't really mind going to the pits a bit earlier. Maybe just avoid all of the problems with having the entire grid being in the pits, and it's a little bit easier here. It's because the pit lane you're only in the pit lane for a couple of seconds at most. Or in your pit box, so it's a little bit easier and less hectic here than in some other series where you actually have to add a lot of fuel and actually take it up to a minute or more. But yeah, it still makes sense. It still doesn't really matter to the back markers, but makes a big difference to the front runners as to when they pit in.
Yeah, certainly it can make a big difference to the actual race order here. But of course, as I said, none of them changed this time round, and I'm just waiting for them to cross the start-finish line so I can see the updated gaps between the cars, and I will certainly tell you about that at the end of this lap. So after the first stint, the driver with the fastest lap of the race is Hani Al Sabdi with a 1:49.462. Very quick lap from Al Sabdi, but Siggy's best lap certainly wasn't far off. Siggy's definitely gained a lot of pace over the last couple of races. Of course, he won last time out over a month ago now, but Al Sabdi now leading from Siggy by 1.3 seconds, so that gap did come down through the pit stop stages. Capit is third, over 14 seconds behind Al Sabdi, so Capit definitely losing out a bit there. Schaefer is over 21 seconds behind in 4th position, and then Vella is 25 seconds behind in 5th. Just waiting for Justin Baruki, the first of the drivers who didn't pit on the last lap of the pit window. He comes through now, and he is in 6th position, and he's going to be followed by his Sim Racing Middle East teammate Garo Sarafian, and then Omar Barbara, Brandon Tabone, and Sandro Zara round out the rest of the 10 drivers remaining in this race.
Oh, as I've just seen Kevin Siggy go a bit sideways in a couple areas this lap. He's definitely pushing his car quite a lot, but actually losing time because of it. Because he's been making mistakes, and it's not what you want to do when you're trying to chase somebody as fast and as consistent so far as Hani Al Sabdi, who...
Cold tires?
Possibly cold tires, but I doubt it. I think he's just pushing a bit too hard and just maybe not quite feeling... maybe a little bit being overconfident with the tires compared to his previous run. It's very possible that a driver that gets very accustomed to a tire that's already used, and then comes out on a fresh tire, overdrives the tire because he feels like he has a lot more grip than he actually does. It's a bit of an overconfidence boost that a tire may give him, and I think that's what happened to Siggy.
Yeah, possibly. And of course, with that 1.3 second gap, which has now come out to 2.1, he might just have seen Al Sabdi ahead and started to charge, and well, just got it wrong really. Got overexcited, and that combined with the turbulent air, of course, means he probably would have been bouncing around a bit, and as a result, Siggy loses out about 0.8 of a second on that that last lap. So Al Sabdi getting away again. But the order, of course, Al Sabdi, Siggy, Capit, Schaefer, Bella, Baruki, Serafian, Barbara, Tabone, and Zara. Those are the 10 drivers in this race. And although they're not battling on track, a lot of the drivers are just sort of sizing themselves up. And if Siggy can get his act together, he might well be able to charge at Al Sabdi once more in the late stages of this race, because it's all about who can conserve their tire life now, and who will be the strongest at the end of this race. So from now on, it's just about keeping your nose clean and making sure you don't overstress those tires.
I think that's pretty much right, and I think Hani Al Sabti is definitely doing a good job of that and has been doing for the entire race. But he was getting a bit. Maybe his pace wasn't nearly as good at the end of that last stint as Kevin Siggy's was. So it'll be very interesting considering they'll have to do 10 minutes more on this set of tires than they did last time. So I'm really wondering if Al Sabti can take care of his tires for an entire stint. Also, something actually interesting that came to me that as I'm watching these cars is that my first official sim race was actually in 911 Carrera Cup cars. So yeah, these cars have a bit of sentimental value to me, except that I think it was the 997s at the time.
Oh way! How did you do in that race?
Oh, I was terrible. It was at Laguna Seca. I had no idea what I'm doing. Oh no, but I have improved since I can tell you that much. That was in 2009. It was an R Factor 1, if anybody remembers that old simulator at this point. And I presume some may have good fond memories of that simulator, so maybe not so fun for others.
Yeah, certainly. I remember my first official sim race was in a Honda BTCC car. And I quite famously managed to reverse into my teammate before the race had even started. So don't ask me how that happened, but yeah, still joke about it. But anyway, Al Sabti still leading the race, and actually just set the fastest lap of the race 2 laps ago. Very nearly bettered it on the last lap. In fact, he's going quicker than on this lap as well. So Al Sabti's still pushing, and still absolutely the fastest driver on track, getting away from Siggy. On the last lap, he pulled out the gap by about half a second. Al Sabdi is rocketing away again in the lead of this race, because he has all of that gap to build up again, as he gained it before the pit stages. Siggy somehow gained some time through that. Maybe Al Sabdi was just a little bit cautious going into the pits or something like that, but whatever the case, Siggy was right on the back of Al Sabdi. Now he's dropping back again, and well, Al Sabdi is in control once again.
Yeah, it seems to be flowing a little bit over the second part of this lap. I think Al Sabti may actually have been making a tiny. I think Siggy actually, yeah, he's still half a second slower this lap. But in places, I think we've seen Al Sabti make very small mistakes, maybe touching grass here and there. I think we'll see how it goes, but Al Sabti is definitely pushing very, very hard, and I think if he pushes it like that, he may end up making either a mistake, which, well, it would be quite surprising, to be honest, or may end up killing his tires if he keeps on pushing. However, Kevin Siggy, he just went completely sideways again, so I think if anybody's killing his tires, it's going to be Siggy.
Hello to everyone on all of our streams. As we said earlier, we're streaming in 4 places here. We're with Sim Racing Malta. We're streaming on Facebook, just search up Sim Racing Malta. And on YouTube as well, you will get the same result, as well as on Twitch. I believe it's still Sim Racing Malta on Twitch, although I don't actually have Twitch to check that. And then as well on the SimNews.TV YouTube channel, SimNews.TV on YouTube. of course, providing the commentary for today's race with me and Kacper Kowalczyk. Did I get that better?
Yeah. Yes. Also, my Discord just cut out for the last couple of minutes, and all I heard was my name being mentioned. But yes, you did get that right.
Good, good. Well, at least I said it better than it better than I did earlier. I've been practicing names like that, and obviously it had made absolutely no difference when I actually started the stream. But at least I got it right now.
Yeah, that's pretty good now. It takes a while to get my name right, so I'm a bit of a... It's probably better that I'm a commentator than being actually on the track, because I know quite a few have issues with my name being pronounced, and I can tell you that there's some that it's also for myself to listen back to a stream and a person who hasn't actually ever seen my name before try to pronounce it. It's always a bit of that comedic value. It has a bit of that comedic value to me. But also,
so we're going for a short break. We'll still be following the race, and we'll be back soon shortly with the commentary.
Hey, Dad, can we give Lisa a ride home?
Sure.
Thanks for the ride.
The new Porsche Cayenne. There's nothing like the feeling when you sports car together.
Gigabit Internet issa f'Malta. Gawdi mill-Giga Power biss mal-Malta Flexi.
They called it madness. Building the car of your dreams yourself. Madness. Putting the engine in the back. Madness. Launching a turbocharged super sports car in the midst of a worldwide oil crisis. Madness. Taking a sports car into the desert and taking the insights gained there back onto the streets. Madness. Building the first hybrid car on Earth. And when its time had come, the fastest one on Earth. Once more, they called it madness. Let them call it madness. We call it courage. The courage to build a sports car with 4 business class seats. The courage to upgrade not only the driving, but also the driver. The courage to transfer an unmistakable design DNA and create a luxury saloon that was born on the racetrack and is at home on the roads. The new Panamera. Courage changes everything.
So 20 minutes remaining now from the race. We're back live now from this 4th round of the Continental Cars Limited Porsche Cup.
And yes, indeed, and we're back to, and nothing much has happened ever since we left you for the commercial break. And at the moment, it looks like the drivers have fairly spaced out. And something that I'd like to mention is this: the broadcast has been brought to you by SimNews.TV, and I would like and we do have more interesting sim racing related content coming up next week. We have streams for the GTVWC ladder coming up next week between Tuesday and Thursday. Shows such as the Scrutineer and the Super League show coming up all next week. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you wish to follow any of that content, since a lot of it is absolutely fantastic. And also make sure to subscribe to the Sim Racing Malta YouTube channel, like their Facebook group, and or follow the Twitch account on the Sim Racing Malta. It's all fantastic content we see here and some great racing. And of course, if you wish to, you can always join into Sim Racing Malta and join one of the casual races especially, and try yourself out. And I think that maybe see if you're made to be made to race here properly on a more regular basis.
Yeah, certainly. Drop into our Facebook group and possibly our Discord group as well, and keep an eye out for the casual races coming up. Get in touch with the organisers. Just put yourself on the entry list, do a bit of practice, and see where you stand. Really, it's a good way of getting into sim racing, and it's a good way of getting into racing competitively as well. And if you are one of the top drivers who wants to give this a go, it's certainly a good place to do it. We have many professional style races, and it's a good place, whatever your experience, whatever your skill level, whatever you drive.
Yeah, sure. We should remind them also that next week we have one of our next casual race, which is the Audi R8 LMS casual race, which will happen on Thursday.
Yes, and that will be at the Watkins Glen course, so a real classic. We are racing on Thursday, of course. That will be Thursday, the 24th of May 2018, and well, that's going to be a very interesting one. The Audi R8, of course, always provides some good racing, just like the Porsche. It's not really like the Porsche, but it is another sort of GT car, very differently handling one, despite also being mid-engine. So it'll be an interesting one, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. I do love the Audi R8; such a beautiful car, and races so well.
It sounds absolutely beautiful as well, with all of that V10 in behind your driver. But also something that I must mention is that the Porsche is a rear-engine car, not a mid-engine car.
Yes, you're right.
Kind of imply that there's a mid-engine. Now, there are mid-engine Porsches, like the Carrera RSR GTE car that's currently racing in for example, the WEC, and it is also available in Assetto Corsa. I nearly said iRacing there for some reason. I've been doing way too much of that simulator.
Yeah.
But in yes, Assetto Corsa, it is available in here, and it's another fantastic car. But the car we're seeing here is a rear-engine car, the GT3 Cup, and it is a rear-engine car. It's actually a very, very different car to drive than you might think. It's a far more aggressive driving style that you require to actually be fast in these cars, but they are so satisfying when you do get it, because you're essentially feeling the edge of the grip even more than in some other cars. I'm seeing that we may have a couple drivers actually closing in on each other.
Yeah,
Bernard Vella with Richard Schaefer about 1.8 seconds apart, and Omar Barbara about 2 seconds away from Gara Sarafian. So I think the Omar Barbara is actually starting to lose time, but it's definitely looking like there's definitely some kind of a possibility for a battle coming up.
Yeah, I was just about to mention Schaefer and Vella. It seems that Vella was gaining on Schaefer by about 1/10 of a second per lap. That lap was pretty much the same between the two of them. Vella slightly faster, but he is pulling in the gap. It's less than 2 seconds between the two of them, mate. And as you said as well, Sarafian and Barbara were close. I believe that Barbara has made a mistake since, though. So a couple of the gaps definitely closing in slightly, and the racing in this round 4 of the Continental Cars Limited Porsche 911 GT3 Championship race. Probably not over yet, but as you say, the cars have a bit of space between them now, and I think where we should be looking is between Vella and Schaefer, because Vella is steadily bringing that gap down pretty much every lap on Schaefer there, and well, the gap's not much. It's about 1.7 seconds, and it has been for the past lap or so. So Schaefer versus Vella, definitely one that could still occur later on, even though Vella's dropping back slightly on this lap by about 0.2 of a second. Really, that does seem like the most realistic change, though, still. So it certainly could happen, and don't forget about Sarafian and Barbara later on either.
Yes, and at the moment it looks like, I'm just checking the lap times by Hani Al-Sabti compared to Kevin Siggy. And the lap time difference is a second a lap at the moment. Hani Al-Sabti is just running away with it. So there's absolutely no challenge in terms of Hani Al-Sabti's win. But Kevin Siggy is still doing a very good job in second place. That must be said. He is definitely pulling a gap on Risto Capet, who just cannot quite manage to keep up or close down on Siggy. And Risto Capet is a very, very fast driver. And I've seen him do some incredible stuff before in GT cars and other series that I've been following. So Risto Capet is definitely one to sometimes watch, but he doesn't seem to quite have it with these cars.
In fact, Vella's last lap there over a second slower than Schaefer's, so Vella really lost a lot on that lap, and probably made a mistake through all of that, because he had been gaining by about 1/10 of a second per lap up until that point. So obviously something happened there. But
drivers to watch right now would be Omar Barbara and Gara Sarafian. They're actually getting very, very close, so under a second difference between the two drivers.
Yeah.
And it seems like both drivers are now struggling with their tires. Gara Sarafian, 2 seconds, a bit over a second slower last lap. and definitely cannot keep it on the track very well. I think this is where the problems occur, where slower drivers overdrive the tires, and this track is very punishing in that case. And I think Barbara is just gonna take absolutely no prisoners in this battle.
No, absolutely not. As you say, this is the point of the race where we start to see some people struggling with tyres. It's a little bit early for that, actually. Looking at the clock, we've got just under 12 minutes of the race remaining, but still, it definitely looks like Serafin's not quite with it in terms of the pace at the minute. Meanwhile, Barbara just set his fastest lap of the race so far, so Barbara definitely going for it, and Serafian definitely dropping back. And in fact, in the first sector as well, Barbara took 0.3 of a second out of Serafian, even though Serafian took 0.2 of a second back in the second sector there. But Barbara still on average gaining on Serafian. This is for 7th position.
Now,
And very wide and into the gravel goes Serafian. So Serafian makes a mistake. He goes into the gravel. He returns to the circuit and he loses 7th position to Omar Barbara. So a mistake from Serafian, and Barbara goes through.
By the looks of it, it's just Barbara is just just had it so. But he already had it basically done and dusted. But it just looks like Serafian just has killed his tires already and just not quite able to turn it in any corner really. So it just appears that he may have been overheating his front left, as I was saying before, that is the most vulnerable tire around here. And mind you, some of these drivers have been on their tires for now 30 minutes, I think. So I mean that's a very long time to be on those tires compared to the first stint, and definitely none of them would have done this kind of distance so far, apart from practice. And even in practice, it's never the same as in a race condition, since you may be led to push a bit more, or just not quite get your marks the same way when you're getting a bit tired after a tire change. It's never the same. So possibly Serafian just wasn't quite able to maintain his tire condition throughout the race.
Yeah, well, he pitted quite early, and he's been on those tyres for almost 35 minutes now, so makes sense for Serafian to be going off slightly now, but yeah, you can't make mistakes that large, and indeed he lost the 7th position there, and he's still got just under 10 minutes of the race to traverse before he can be rid of that wretched set of tyres.
Absolutely. Well, wretched set of tires and any damage to the car. If he has any at this point. Thankfully, in Assetto Corsa, you do not get floor damage from going over bumps. So even if he did go into the gravel, it's not going to kill his car by any means. All that you'll get is a bit of dirty tires, which is simulated in Assetto Corsa. Dirty tires which already clear up after about 2 or 3 corners. So that's pretty much not a non-issue at this point. And especially that his tires probably already feel like they're basically gravel trap.
Yeah, and Al Sabdi now has pulled the gap out to over 10 seconds up the front of the field. So Al Sabdi properly running away from it. His lap's still about 7 tenths to a second faster than Siggy pretty much every single lap. So Al Sabdi extending his lead, and Risto Capit now is about half a minute behind Al Sabdi. So Capit in 3rd place is well, definitely not anywhere near in sight of Al Sabdi. Al Sabdi has this under control at the minute, and he has 8 minutes of the race remaining before the checkered flag falls. And behind him are Siggy, Capit, Schaefer, Vela, Baruki, Barbara, Serafian, Tabone, and Zara in order. The top 8 drivers still on the lead lap here.
And it's actually kind of surprising. The track is very long, so it actually shouldn't be surprising that we still have 8 drivers. But with the speed of Hani Al Sabti, it's amazing that that there are still 8 drivers on the lead lap. With
it's a competitive field.
It is, and how many drivers did we start with? 12?
Yeah, 12.
Yeah, so thankfully we only had 2 retirements so far, although one driver is significantly further down than anyone else. But definitely, it seems like we're at the stage of the race where it's a bit of a stagnation point. 7 minutes to go. People may be a bit safer, but still anything can happen. People can make mistakes. And but surprisingly enough, what I'm seeing as well is Serafian is still maintaining about the same gap as he had once he exited the gravel trap. And in fact, am I seeing a bit of a... Oh, Barbara actually made a mistake, and Serafian's already ahead of Barbara again.
Yeah.
Serafian made a mistake into the final corner, and Serafian just takes the advantage, and somehow, even though he made a big mistake and his tires were completely killed by the looks of it, he managed to get by Barbara again, who now lost good 4 or 5 seconds this lap.
Well, I didn't see how that happened, did you?
No, I just seen the very back end of it. I was looking at our drivers at the time and just caught the tail end of the whole situation, I presume. It all happened in the final corner, so Barbara must have just gone way, way wide or something like that and just couldn't get the car around.
And now he has to do it all again if he is going to finish ahead of Gary Serafian, the 7th position. So all of that work has been undone, and now he has to catch him again. So definitely unfortunate for Barbara, and he will not be happy at himself for doing so.
No, especially with just about 7 minutes to go as it was at the time, it's very little time for him to actually make an overtake once again for that 7th spot, and I think he can do it. I think he can catch up and still overtake, because Serafian is definitely much slower than Barbara is, but overtaking is not that easy, and we've seen it before as Barbara gets through because Serafian makes the same mistake.
Ah, it's the same mistake again.
He just goes wide in the same exact corner, in the same exact manner, maybe not as deep, but that's definitely Serafian losing out about a second on Barbara, and I don't think he's going to be able to take that back, because I don't think Barbara is going to make the same mistake twice.
Well, Serafian certainly did. If you know that your tyres are going to pitch you off like that, then you certainly shouldn't still drive the corner in the same way. We saw that, I believe, at Vallelunga as well, where I think it was Serafian again, had an incident at turn 1 after getting onto the white line, and then did exactly the same thing twice more in the race. So Serafian may be a driver who just doesn't learn from his mistakes, and that is really a driver's downfall a lot of the time. So, well, you have to say Serafian will probably be feeling quite silly at the minute.
Indeed, and you should, once something like that happens, it's a warning call for any driver that you should be slowing down a little bit in the same corner, maybe a bit earlier, because a driver behind you will usually not attack unless they're super aggressive or it's the very final lap until they're pretty much right on the tail end of you. And I think that Serafian just overdrove that car by a lot, and now he makes a big mistake and is possibly... I think he just got lapped, actually. So he managed to get lapped as he basically puts it into the gravel, coming out of the final chicane in the 2nd sector. So just before the double right-hander.
Yeah. So well, they're just about to be lapped now by Hani Al Sabdi. Serafian has already been lapped. Barbara just about to be. Of course, Serafian made a mistake earlier this lap. Now there's a big gap between the two of them. Or made a mistake last lap, of course, and Al Sabdi has got between them. So Al Sabdi, our race leader, yeah, he's in traffic at the minute, but the traffic's getting out of his way rather nicely as Barbara lets him through into the final corner there. So Al Sabdi gets past them without any issue, and the next target for Al Sabdi actually is quite a way up the road, Justin Baruki, so I don't think we're going to see any more lappery in this race. But Al Sabdi gets past them nicely. There was that debris on the road going down into turn 1, or was that an ominous shadow?
I think it would be a shadow, because I don't think there is debris in Assetto Corsa, or at least not very much that I can know of. But
yeah, that's true.
Yes, Al Sabdi definitely just being in a world of his own right now. This lap was a bit slower, However, last lap he still did a 1:49.3, so he is completely running away with it. And his race laps would put this late in the race on tires that are 13 minutes old, would still put him in top 5 of qualifying. So that's quite incredible, in fact.
Wow, yeah, that's really quite amazing, and we often see that from Assetto. I remember a race earlier this year, I think it was Brands Hatch, where his lap would have put him second in qualifying. So really amazing performance from Assetto all season long, and this is going to be his 3rd victory from 4 races if he can just hold on for 1 3/4 of a minute now. So Assetto leading this race, followed by Siggy, Capet, Schaefer, and Vella. Those are the top 5 here. And
so Assetto will just have 1 more lap after this to finish this race. This will be probably a lap that he may take easy, although I don't think at this point you really it really matters for Assetto. He just doesn't make mistakes, does he?
No, and I haven't seen him really make a mistake for the entire race, so I don't expect we're going to see him making an error on this next lap. We are now starting the final lap of this race. Well, I hope I haven't just put the commentator's curse on him. But we're starting the final lap of this race now. Hani Assetto, it's been a dominant performance so far, and now he just has to put the cork on the bottle and make sure everything is contained and measured on this final lap of the race. He's got almost a 14-second advantage, so he certainly doesn't need to be pushing now. And we often see drivers start to back off at this point in the race because you simply shouldn't be taking those risks and using those tyres or anything like that. You know, it's not worth it. You're leading the race, and well, no one expects you to be the fastest. They just expect you to finish up the front. Although Assetto still does hold the fastest lap of the race with a 1:49.147, as you were saying, extremely quick, fastest lap, and you know, he's just the best, really. You have to say, Assetto, just amazing.
Absolutely is the fastest in this car of this grid. Definitely, absolutely no contention. Siggy did try to hold him off, and he just had no chance whatsoever. And I think we see why at this point. I mean, Siggy and Assetto were pretty much nose to tail at the tail end of the pit stops, and Assetto just ran away with it for the last 35 minutes, and was able to get through as he goes through the final corner. And he's
so Hani Assetto, who had a poor start to the race and lost the lead to Kevin Siggy, fought his way back through. He held on to Siggy for that whole time and then drove around the outside of him at turn 1. An amazing move earlier in the race, and now he's going to come across the start-finish line. Hani Assetto wins it 3 out of 4. Amazing victory for Hani Assetto, who wins round 4 of the Porsche Continental Cars Limited 911 GT3 Championship by 14 seconds from Kevin Siggy. A dominant performance from Assetto again from Siggy, who is second in the championship. 3rd place is going to be Risto Cap at a little way back, and then it'll be Schaefer and Vella who make up the top 5. Great performance from Assetto.
I mean, a completely dominant performance, but also a very good race from Siggy and Capet. Both of them did a very, very good, managed a very good race, managed their pace. They did manage to have, or Siggy had a bit of a scrap with Assetto and tried to go for that win, but I don't think he ever really stood a chance against Assetto, to be perfectly honest.
Well, he's beaten Assetto in the past because we saw it at Vallelunga last time out, although Assetto didn't get much practice at Vallelunga. But the championship now separated by 10 points, which is a lot. But remember, if Assetto has a dodgy race at some point, 10 points is what you get for 6th position. So really, the battle is still on between those two for the lead of the championship. And if Siggy can really find some pace for the second half of this year, we are now at the halfway point of this season, then maybe Siggy can challenge later on. It's going to be extremely tough. But Assetto is 1, followed by Siggy, Capet, Schaefer, Vella, Maruki. We're just waiting for Omar Barbara. He's still going round. He's going to finish in 7th position. And then it was Garo Serafian and Brandon Savone. They've already crossed the finish line in 8th and 9th. Sandro Zara is just crossing the line now to take 10th position, last of the finishers. Our 2 DNFs were Gogo Baldi and Dario Andreoni. Baldi is going to be losing out on a lot of points from that, I'm afraid to say. But across the line now comes Barbara to finish 7th. To finish in 7th position. There he goes. And that is all of our drivers in this race. So we're now going to wait a couple of minutes to get some drivers for some pre or some post race interviews.
Also, interesting enough, we finally got all drivers to actually finish with the countdown.
Yes, that was an issue in the last couple of casual races, but yeah, the countdown timer has been put to a good number for this race. So every driver who should have finished did finish, and now we are about to start the post race interviews. Just waiting for the drivers to get unmuted. I think I'll do it in alphabetical order again to save myself the choice. So first up, we're going to bring in Kevin Sig. Hani Al Sabdi. Hello, Hani.
Hey guys.
So, Hani, fantastic performance there to win the race by over 14 seconds. Again, fastest lap of the race and pole position. You had to fight for this one, surely.
Yeah, I did. I don't know what happened at the start. Me and Kevin, we had some contact, and I managed to save it. That was really a big luck from my side. And then we had a good fight for first place. Managed to overtake him in the first corner. But he kept behind me really close. So he has really good pace today. So yeah.
And what a move it was around the outside of Siggy early on in the race. Did you actually think that was going to work when you went for it, or was it simply speculative? And then you just found the grip and thought, "Wow, I can go through here." You know, what was going through your mind at that point?
Well, first of all, I tried to break as late as possible, and of course, Siggy had to give me some room. It was all about them. If he gave me the room, I can try to stay on the outside because the next corner will be on the left side, which is for me the inside. And it worked. It worked. I kept it on track, stayed in second gear, which gave me the bit of advantage. So yeah.
Well, it was a fantastic race, and after that, I suppose it was just about keeping your nose clean. You were 14 seconds out in front at the end of that. Did it feel completely controlled? You know, it was a good one.
Well, at first, Siggy kept pushing behind me, so I had to push also. I made some mistakes here and there, and then he caught up a lot of time in the pit stops. I didn't go full throttle into the pits. I braked, and then I slowed down a lot, and then went into the pits, which I lost at least 2 seconds compared to Siggy. So when we get back on track, he was like 1.5 seconds behind me again. So I had to push again to make that gap between us. And when the gap increased, I think he started to make mistakes. And this gave me a lot of room to just cruise around.
Well, it was a fantastic performance, and very well done for that. So, moving on now to our second place finisher, Kevin Siggy. Hello, Kevin.
Hello.
So, Kevin, you were properly in it from the start there. You had a tense battle in terms of lap times in qualifying. Ended up second there, but at the start of the race, I'm sure you felt like you had a chance to properly go for that one.
Yeah, probably not after the fourth lap when I saw his pace, but yeah, I think qualifying was good in my part. I think the setup worked very well with the conditions, but not in the race. I couldn't do anything.
Well, it was a good performance nonetheless, and you held him off for quite a while there. Although he came through like a train, didn't he? I mean, were you as amazed as I was that he managed to pull that move off?
No, I wasn't. I knew it was gonna happen because the car just didn't work in my favor with second gear in that hairpin, especially even with the tight corner that I took, and so I just knew he was gonna pass me.
And then after that, you gained a bit of time through the pit stages there. But was the aim throughout the whole race still to win it, or was it just to sort of keep clean and conserve second?
My goal was to win, but after the 5th lap or 6th lap, when I saw his pace, I just gave up and I went for second. I was still pushing the car as much as possible, but my goal was to finish second and not do mistakes.
Actually, I have a small question. How much of a concern were the tires? Because I know personally from experience that the front left is definitely a problem around here.
Yeah, the front left was a bit crap, and the rears were a bit too worn out as well because of oversteering and such. But in the end, I think it was like a second off after a while.
No, there's 10 points between you and Al Sabdi in terms of the championship. Al Sabdi has seemed to just have the legs on pretty much the entire field so far this year, but I suppose all it takes is for him to have one bad race, and you could be right back in it, Siggy. Do you keep hope about that? You know, do you dream about this championship?
Yeah, of course I do. But if he keeps going on that pace, then I think he'll win it.
All right. Well, still the second half of the championship to go, so hopefully you can keep up this good performance for the rest of that.
Indeed.
Now, our third place finisher is also here, and that will be for ACR Zach Speed, Risto Capet. Hello, Risto.
Ciao.
So, Risto, some very good pace there throughout this race. Not quite with the top two guys, but still, are you pleased to have hung on to third position there?
Well, very interesting evening. After the last round in Vallelunga, I was really disappointed about where my pace had gone, and I had a really good chat with Honey. He pretty much poured all his secrets to me, all the setups and driving style and stuff, and I found a lot of time immediately. So I didn't practice too much for this race, but I was quite confident, and yeah, I went out in qualifying. I was doing good lap times. I was feeling good, and then I exit into the garage, and I see Honey going 0.7 seconds faster. It's a huge disaster. I don't know. I did quite well, but there's something extra missing. So yeah, after that, like Kevin said, he only planned to finish in second, and I also had only the plan to finish in third. I think indeed, if he keeps doing this pace, then he will have the margins to just take the wins and go drive that Porsche himself while we watch.
Now, the driver who was closest behind you in the championship, Gergo Baldi, retired there. Do you focus your sights behind you much, or is it just well? Do you think you can catch the top two?
Well, yeah, it's good that maybe third place is not secure, but yeah, of course the focus is forwards. There is for sure great prizes of 100 and 150 euros for finishing third and second in the championships, but yeah, if you look at the points table again, if any of the top two have a bad round like Baldi did or disconnection, then the gap will be huge. So yeah, got to just keep on it and keep being patient and try my best to find some pace in all of this. And yeah, of course, I'm looking forward. This is the whole goal of this championship, to win.
Well, that was a very good performance there from you, Risto, and another third place and another podium in the championships. So keep it up, I suppose.
I will. Thanks.
So that is the end of this broadcast. There, the end of the interviews, and now we're about to sign off. So thanks to all of our sponsors. I'll hand over to Adrian Figallo for those.
Yeah, sure. I would like to thank you, Joshua, and Kacper for giving us an excellent commentary and follow up on this race and all the races that you've been commentating with us. Would like definitely to thank our sponsors, main sponsors of this championship, Porsche and Continental Cars Limited, Melita, Textor Distribution, Extreme Power Sport GT, Omega Races, Genesis, Husingveld, Fanatec, Sparco, SimNews.TV, and World of Sim Racing. Next round will be, just a second, because on the 15th of June, at Nürburgring. So we'll definitely have an appointment now for the 15th of June in less than a month's time for round 5 of this Continental Cars Limited Porsche 911 GT3 Cup 2019.
And we have to remind them about the casual race.
Yeah, sure. The casual race next week, Thursday next week, 8 p.m. GMT +2, Audi R8 LMS casual race from Sim Racing Malta.
It really is the home of Porsche, the Nürburgring. They do pretty much all of their testing there. So next round, I'm sure, will be a fantastic race for the Porsches. Don't forget to check out the SimNews.TV YouTube channel as well. This, of course, was streaming to it. Of course, coming up on that, we have good action from the GPVWC coming up this week, as well as the Scrutineer and Super League shows to go along with that, and also with Sim Racing Malta, as you say, the casual race and the other races from the main series still coming up later this season. But in the meantime, from Mugello and from me and Kacper, Kwadjacik, is that right?
Yep, that would be right.
Jolly good. That is it for today. So see you later.
See you.
Hey, Dad, can we give Lisa a ride home?
Sure.
Thanks for the ride.
The new Porsche Cayenne. There's nothing like the feeling when you sports car together.
Gigabit Internet issa f'Malta. Gawdi mill-Giga Power biss mal-Malta Flexi.
They called it madness. Building the car of your dreams yourself. Madness. Putting the engine in the back. Madness. Launching a turbocharged super sports car in the midst of a worldwide oil crisis. Madness. Taking a sports car into the desert and taking the insights gained there back onto the streets. Madness. Building the first hybrid car on Earth. And when its time had come, the fastest one on Earth. Once more, they called it madness. Let them call it madness. We call it courage. The courage to build a sports car with 4 business class seats. The courage to upgrade not only the driving, but also the driver. The courage to transfer an unmistakable design DNA and create a luxury saloon that was born on the racetrack and is at home on the roads. The new Panamera. Courage changes everything.